Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I am Katrina from the Oakville Soccer Club and am very excited to be joined by the one and only Diana Matheson. Thanks for coming tonight, Diana. Well, coming to your living room, I guess, to take this Zoom call with me. Appreciate you making the time for us. For those of you who don't know, which is almost impossible, Diana is an OSC alum, starting her career with the club at a very young age, moving through the ranks, having a ton of exciting experiences, including the Olympics, elite university career, a national team career, a professional soccer career, lots of very, very cool and inspiring things. So Diana, we're so excited to chat with you tonight. We haven't had a chance to sit down for a little while, so thanks for making the time. How's quarantine going?
It's going probably the same as everyone else out there. More Zoom calls, more puzzles.
Puzzles, good, yeah.
Still training a bit. We're in my den, which is my Zoom office / workout room.
Perfect.
At the moment, more runs outside, but more dodging people during those runs. So yeah, probably same as everyone else out there.
Sounds about right. So let's get ready. We've had a ton of really positive feedback about you joining us tonight. Lots of preemptive questions. I already see a lot of people are jumping on to watch and questions are already starting to roll in. So let's just find out some stuff and see what you have to say about some of the questions that our players have submitted. So let's just start out at the very beginning. What is your earliest memory of soccer?
My earliest memory of soccer was playing in Oakville. So I grew up playing Oakville. I started when I was 5, and my very first team was sponsored by Oakville Hydro. I actually still have the jersey, I think, which weirdly I could wear today. Maybe suggest it was far too big at the time.
It could have been sizing
Classic
sometimes
white
off.
one, black stripes, Oakville Hydro. And I very clearly remember at the end of the year, everyone got fluorescent pink Oakville Hydro hats. So
Nice.
I quite like the hat.
Excellent. Fluorescent pink is definitely the way to go. And you can bust out that jersey for like a nostalgia game someday. Maybe next time we do an all-star game with OSC, just pop that bad boy on.
I've kept a few jerseys over the years, like national team ones, university, but I have 2 from Oakville. I have that one. And then I have like the years they went like the Barca colors, like kind of the maroon and blue. I have one of those as well.
Nice. Well, they are vintage, so hang on to them.
I will.
Tell us a little bit about your path. So you started at OSC and then lots of really amazing things have happened along the way. So can you hit some of your highlights for us?
Yeah, let's go through it. Started at Oakville. I played all my rep soccer for Oakville. The system when I went through it a few years ago now is obviously different than it is today. But we had provincial started at under 13. And I actually didn't make the provincial team the first time I tried out. The coach didn't select me kind of from a big group of players, but I had a coach with Oakville at the time who really believed in me and got me in a tryout later on. And I ended up making the team a bit later. And I played for Oakville and I played provincial for a few years. And then when provincial was kind of ending, I was getting a bit too old. There was something called the National Training Center back then that would train at the Oakville Soccer Center there a few times a week. And I was training with that for a few years, but I hadn't really been called into any of the youth national teams kind of as I was getting older. I was getting 18 years old at the time. Several of my friends I played with in provincial and NTC had been called into youth national teams. A few of them were even starting to make the full national team, but I hadn't really been called in yet at that age. And I thought I would finish NTC, I'd go to university. I was planning to play university soccer and then probably graduate school and go get a job in a bank and wear a pantsuit. That's what I always tell people. Right. That's what my plan was. But I had another coach at the time with the provincial team, Brian Rosenfeld. He's actually still around with Ontario Soccer. He was a big advocate for me. He actually moved me into the midfield. I used to play a bit of winger and forward. And he actually helped me get scouted by the national team coach at the time. And that was right before I was 19. I got invited to my very first camp for Canada. It was in Portugal. I'd never been out of North America before, so it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But that was my first camp way back in 2003. So possibly older than many of the kids viewing this program here tonight.
Just a number.
Sure you remember. And then I just stuck around. I mean, the coach off the bat kind of gave me a few things to work on off the bat. I the team used to be quite direct and physical right there. We played a lot of long balls to Christine Sinclair. We didn't play a lot of possession. And I think when he brought me in at 5 foot and a little bit, he wasn't sure what I was going to add to the team. But off the bat, I just tried to add intensity and kind of defensive hard work before I was able to add any technique or possession. And I think he saw that and appreciated that. And he kept me around. And that was back in 2003. As I said, there was a World Cup that year, as all the kids listening tonight remember. And yeah, I've been on the team since. I did end up going to university. I went to Princeton, got my degree there. I played soccer there. And then after university, I needed to play professionally somewhere to keep playing for Canada. So I went to Norway for a few years, played pro there for off and on 5 seasons. And then I've been playing pro in the US ever since. And yeah, I had a few World Cups, few Olympics during that time. And
Casually.
and that, I think that about wraps it up. I think that's
that's it. That's all.
Great.
That's all you've done. Very cool. And definitely a lot of different experiences along the way that contributed to it. We're having some questions starting to roll in, which is awesome. Everybody, you can share your questions with us in the chat online. Tell us which team you're from or which club you're from, your age group and your questions. A question that's been coming up a lot with players, especially as they get a little bit older in the competitive side, is what was it like to play? You went to Princeton, which we've all heard of, a very prestigious school, a very famous school in the States. What was it like to play at that level, at that kind of a school, and still be working towards the educational side, towards the pantsuit side of the career? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was a challenge. Princeton's obviously a good academic school, and I knew I did want to go somewhere in the US that was a strong academic school. There's a lot of universities to go to in the US, and there's a lot of very good schools, and there's some questionable schools, I think, academically, but I wanted to go somewhere with a good academic program. As I said, there was a World Cup the fall after I graduated high school. That was in 2003. So I actually took a full year off of university because I knew with the World Cup, I would miss just too much school to be able to kind of adapt to my first year in university. So I took a year off. And then when I got in school, it was kind of an off year. So I was able to prioritize a bit of school before soccer kind of ramped up again. But it's always a balancing act with school and soccer. You have to be very organized. You have to be good at time management. I mean, these days with everything's on the internet, so you just have to be organized with your time. You can do work on the road, on the bus, on the airplane. It just took some, if I knew I was going to be away on the weekend, I could kind of plan ahead what needed to be done. I was always the type where I tried to get as much done before I left, so I didn't have to do as much on the road. But
makes sense.
There's sacrifices too. There was definitely classes I couldn't take in university because it involved, physically being in class more than I was, or being in a lab. The sciences I didn't choose to do because I knew it'd be too much time. But being proactive, talking to your professors, and being organized, those were definitely the keys.
Yeah. Well, you have to make sacrifices to do very cool things, like play for that type of a school and for the national team. And then you mentioned a few minutes ago casually that you hit up the Olympics a few times. So can you tell us a little bit about just a few times, and obviously there were some majorly exciting events that came out of some of those experiences. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an Olympian.
It was a dream come true. When I was growing up, I don't think I had the dream of being an Olympian because I wasn't on any of the youth national team programs, I said, so I don't think I saw it in my future. And women's soccer wasn't in the Olympics yet. Professional women's soccer wasn't really anywhere. So I don't think I really saw it was an option for me, but definitely once I was on the national team and there was a chance to make the Olympics, that was huge. And we didn't qualify in 2004.
Okay.
Which was a big upset at the time. And then we qualified for the first time in 2008 in Beijing. Melissa Tancredi scored a goal to get us through against Mexico. And that was just a dream come true. And I can remember coming home from that trip from Olympic qualifying, going back. I went back to school, and I can remember just walking around campus being on cloud 9, knowing that I was going to go to the Olympics that summer.
That's wild. It would be definitely a surreal sort of experience. So tell us a little bit about that major goal that game-winning goal. What was that? I don't even know. You probably can't find the words to actually describe it, but tell us a little bit about how that played out and how you felt when it happened.
That the London one?
Yes.
Yeah, that, I mean, it's surreal for sure. So Beijing was our first Olympics, and we were very much at the Olympics and maybe a bit overwhelmed with it, which you hear a lot. First time Olympians, it can be a big experience. It's different than any other tournament we're part of. And then London, we were really a lot more focused. We were an older group, and we were going there to win a medal, even though it was a bit of a long shot at the time. And yeah, that whole tournament was just full of drama. Obviously, most people remember that US game, which had some referee drama in it.
Right.
So going into that last game against France, we were physically drained, we were emotionally and mentally drained. And I mean, France just killed us all game. For the first 20 minutes, we looked good. And then the legs fell off and they were all over us. And we were hanging on for dear life. And then 93 minutes or so into that game, Sophie Schmidt hit a shot, deflected, it came to me. And I just remember the net was wide open and all I had to do was hit the ball in an open net. And I think I was off celebrating before my other foot hit the ground.
Well, I think that's understandable. Yeah, that would be probably pretty career. Would you say that's obviously a pretty defining moment in your career, something that stands out incredibly to you?
For sure. I think that'll never be topped. And I think that, I mean, that tournament too is kind of a watershed moment for Canadian soccer. I think there's kind of before London and after London. A lot of the opportunities we've got after that tournament are definitely because of that bronze medal.
Definitely. And I think that it's contributed. We're so lucky in Canada and in the Canadian soccer landscape to have the female leadership on the national side that we do have from players like yourself and the rest of the team that have really brought women in sports and females in soccer and the sport of soccer to the forefront. And been such a huge inspiration. So we've been really lucky from the club perspective to have players like you that have created those opportunities for the ones that are with us now that are looking to be, that have the dream because of you. I think that's really cool. So we're very lucky. Other than that game, so obviously that stands out as a huge moment, but a question from one of our coaches, house league coach John Bridge, he had asked, you've been a lot of places and a lot of tournaments and a lot of games, like what is one of the most standout sort of games other than that one that you remember, a place that you just came out of the tunnel and was like, whoa, this is crazy?
Ooh, there's probably been a few of those. I mean, they probably were big tournament games. I mean, I do clearly remember, this is going to repeat a few, sorry. The qualification game in 2008 when we qualified for Olympics, that was probably the most nerve-wracking game I've been a part of, but one of the most rewarding. In London 2012, actually, our third group game against Sweden was one of my favorite games I've been a part of. We played so well that game. We were down 2-0 after 20 minutes and then came back to get a result. That game was played in Newcastle at the home of John Herdman's childhood club. So he was like beside himself to be coaching on that sideline. And we all felt that, you know. The US game, that tournament, we got to play at Old Trafford, obviously the home of Manchester United, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty iconic. Yeah.
And then a few World Cups. The 2011 World Cup in Germany, we were part of the home opener against Germany in Berlin in front of 70,000 people. That atmosphere was incredible. And then the home opener as well in 2015 in Canada in Edmonton with 50,000 plus people. Actually, every game in that World Cup with, I think there's 50,000 people at every game that would allow it. With every atmosphere, that tournament was amazing.
Is there a really special feeling that comes along with playing for the national team when you play at home, especially like coming out to your, Canadian fans that are really like on home turf? Is there like a really cool buzz that comes along with that?
Absolutely, because we play the majority of our games not at home. I mean, we all play professionally out of the country, so we don't get to play on home soil for those. And then national team games, more often than not, you're out of the country. And yeah, playing at home is absolutely special, especially when we get a good crowd out. It's always pretty cool.
Nice. Let's take a few questions. If anybody sees me glancing, I'm just looking at the other screen, looking at some questions here. So we've got a question from Katie. She said, what's one of the best motivational speeches you've got from a coach, or some of the best advice you've gotten from a coach?
Probably got a lot of good advice over the years.
Yeah.
I'll go back. I'll give you a few. I'll go back to Brian Rosenfeld when I was first, a youth player, and he moved me into the midfield. And I think I wasn't that confident as a player that I was going to kind of make it to that next level because it hasn't happened yet. And he was kind of the first one to say, if you're good enough, and if you believe you're good enough, you're going to make it. And that was just good advice to believe in yourself. Coaches, I've got a ton.
A couple over the years. Yeah.
So there might be a few there, probably a lot of John Herdmanisms. I'm not going to right now. We had a pretty good motivational speech before the US game in 2012 where it was the theme. I can't remember exactly, but the theme was kind of around this game's not here to be lost. Like we have not won this game before. Like this title is not ours. We are not Olympic champions. You have to go out and take this game.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of messaging, which was very powerful at the time, especially when you're playing the Americans.
Sure.
And then there was the first game against Germany I'm jumping around, 2016 in Rio in the Olympics. We played Germany in our group. Melissa Tancredi gave a speech before that game that was, I don't even remember what she said, but it hit the heart.
Just feel it.
And then she went out and basically won that game for us. So
perfect. Well, sometimes it's the energy as much as it is the message, right? Probably getting amped up and ready to go. And, you're already excited and nervous probably and just want to get going. So the tone of that speech probably has a lot to do with like how you hit the ground running. So, and I imagine there's definitely been no shortage of coach motivational pep talks in your past. We have another question from Crystal. She says, hi, Diana. My kids would like to know, who was your inspiration when you were a kid?
Good question. As I said, I didn't get to watch a lot of women's soccer when I was growing up, so not really any women's soccer players, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I made the team, Christine Sinclair was already on the team, so it was kind of an inspiration. Even though she's only a year older than me, she was kind of already a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, once I made the national team, some of the other women on that team were huge inspirations to me, just to watch how they kind of operated and how they held themselves as Canadian athletes. People like Andrew Neil, Charmaine Hooper, those kind of legends and pioneers that blazed the past. The generation like Sinky, myself, the Melissa Tancredis, all kind of learned from those women when we came in. So I'll say those two, even though I didn't necessarily know them when I was a young kid, but I definitely did when I was a bit older.
Fair enough. You played other sports, did you not? Growing up?
Yep, I did a few other school and high school, cross country and track, and I played hockey as well. I played hockey until I finished high school.
Wow. So not a casual schedule, pretty busy probably then and still now. Mm-hmm. Lots of stuff still going on. We have a question from Jennifer. It's a question from a keeper. What is the most important thing a keeper can do for the players in front of her? And she says, thanks so much for sharing your story.
Ooh, a goalkeeper question. I don't get too many of those.
We're changing it up.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely communication. That's the one thing a goalkeeper always has to add to the team. And that's not a skill thing or a technique thing. That's just putting your voice out there for the team to hear and really giving your voice to the team with confidence. And that goes such a long way. And I know the best goalkeepers I've played with have had a strong voice on the field. And the good goalkeepers that I've played with that haven't had a strong voice on the field, it makes such a big difference. So just put your voice out there, even no matter how your game's going, just put a confident voice out there for your team.
Awesome. That was a great question, Jennifer. Thank you.
That's a good question. I've never been asked that before. So thank you.
Yes. Nice. Excellent job, Jennifer. We've got the edge here. We have a question from Emmy Sawyer. She's a Girls U11 player. And she says, how do you motivate yourself before a game?
I think, I mean, it's probably different as I've gotten older in my career. I think now what motivates me is the love, honestly, the love of the game. I've had a few injuries the past few years, so just the opportunity to get to play is special, and I've been trying to enjoy that and cherish that. I think my own standards, I think I want to always put out a quality performance and kind of set the tone with intensity first, and then you can kind of go from there with any skill, technique, that sort of thing, but the intensity's got to come first, kind of that work rate you want to add to the team.
Sure.
And then what motivates me too is trying to be a good example for kind of those younger players under me, whether it's the national team or on my club team, making sure I'm setting the right example for those younger players, so they can see what it's like to be a professional player or to play for Canada.
Probably a lot of pressure comes with that too. You're representing your country, so there's, you want to put your best foot forward, and you want to make sure that everybody else on the team is sort of taking that note from each other and being representative of the country you're so proud to play for, I would imagine. It's a good question from John. So being a shorter player, how do you find it dealing with taller opposition, and do you have any tricks for the shorter player?
I don't win as many headers. It's probably my only way in that. No issue with it. Advice to shorter players. So I'll keep it on when the ball's on the ground, no problem. Like, get your arms out, be strong, be physical. And then when the ball's in the air, you can try and give yourself a bit more space. Like, if you're going up just straight up with someone who's taller than you, they've got an advantage. But if you can kind of hold them off and attack a ball forward that's kind of over here, then you've got a bit more of a chance of putting it in the air. Not that I'm a great header, but that's my advice.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about what it's like playing professionally for your club teams, and sort of where your career has taken you on that professional women's soccer side. You've had the opportunity to see that advance a little bit in the time that you've been playing soccer, and see there be some growth and some traction in the women's game on the professional side. So tell us what that experience and sort of the different teams that you've been with, and some standout experiences that way for you.
Sure. Yeah, I started my pro career in Norway. When I graduated school, our coach at the time was Norwegian, and he had contacts out there. And there was a player called Hege Risa, who is one of the best women's players ever, and she was coaching in Norway. And I had a Canadian teammate over there, Rian Wilkinson, was already playing, so I went to play for that club. And yeah, that was my first taste of pro soccer. It was a dream come true. You got games on the weekend, and kind of all week is spent just preparing for that game, and all you're trying to do is win games for that club. And I loved playing in Norway because there was a really strong community feel. Like, a lot of these players and women grew up in these towns or around these towns. They grew up supporting these clubs. The coach, the equipment manager, like, they're diehard parts of the community. So, like, it really matters to them on a different level. And I love that. And we got to win a league title and a cup over there. So that was great.
Very cool.
And then, being back in the US, I played in DC for 4 seasons, I think, which I loved. And then I'm in Utah now with Utah Royals FC. And like you said, the league's really been growing. It started off at a point where it was trying to survive more than anything. And then every year it's kind of pushed the standards to get better and better in terms of how it treats its players, facilities, kind of that sort of thing. And I'm really lucky to be in Utah at this point in my career, because that owner, the team's only been there 2 years. It's the same owner who owns the men's MLS team, Real Salt Lake. And he just set it up exactly the same as the men's team. The stadium's fantastic. Our locker room in the stadium is fantastic. Training field, like the way we're taken care of there is great. So I'm definitely happy to be there at this point in my career.
Awesome. Very cool. What was the challenge in playing when you were in Norway? Like, what language barriers and stuff like that was that? And like, how did that come into play, and how did you sort of deal with that?
Yeah, fortunately, everyone speaks English, so that was great. They spoke English and usually 2 or 3 other languages. They kind of put, there were 2 Canadians there and 2 Americans my first year, and they put the rest of us to shame. One of the players' dads was actually like an ESL teacher, basically. So we took Norwegian lessons with him once a week, and he tried to teach us some Norwegian. So I have a very basic understanding of Norwegian, but to be honest, I was too lazy. Considering how many years I was there, I should be fluent, but it was just too easy that everyone could speak English.
Everybody spoke English, so
I kind of cheated, and I didn't really fully apply myself to learn, unfortunately.
That's okay. you had other things to do, so
Yeah,
it's acceptable, I think. Question from Sophia. She's a OIC Girls U10 player. So what tips can you give us on bouncing back after a tough first half or a not great game?
Mm-hmm. I think for a tough first half, I mean, there's different scenarios. If you guys have played well, but you're losing the game, I think it's important just to stick to what you're doing, belief that you're doing the right things, and that the result's going to come. It just takes a bit of patience sometimes, and not getting stressed and trying to do too much or too many different things. Like if the team's got a plan and it's doing well with that, stick to it. If the team hasn't been playing well, then can you go back to those things that really your team is about? Get more people on the same page. A lot of times when teams aren't doing well, individual players tend to go, a bit inward. They're not talking as much. They're thinking about what they're doing wrong. So just get on to the next task as soon as possible. Maybe, grab your teammate, give them a shout, get the communication going again. You can always go back to communication and the intensity, the hard work you're putting out there. So I would say those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
And tough loss. I mean, those are always tough. Some players always take it harder than others. Some players get over losses quicker. Some get over them a bit longer. But it's for us, like we always try and go back to, we try and watch the game back, and it's usually not as bad as you think it was when you rewatch a game. That's always true. You never played as well as you think, and you never played as poorly as you think.
Right.
Not that all the kids out there should be watching all their videos after every game, but just try and take one or two either positive things from the game or what you could do better for next game. But I also promise you, it's never as bad as you think it was.
That's good, helpful advice. And, you can only grow and learn from it. So sometimes you just have to move past and don't let that negative attitude probably go with you into the next game. Things will get better. We have to lose sometimes. It happens. Connor and Carly want to know, how important is it, or how important do you think it is to be able to play multiple positions on the field as a young player?
Good question. I think it's very important. I know on the national team, it's a huge advantage if you're able to play different positions. I mentioned Rian Wilkinson before, one of my best friends and one of the best defenders ever to play for Canada. She actually started as a winger with the national team. She was a forward, and then Evan Pellerud moved her into fullback a year in. And she was there, for the next 13 years, best right back for Canada. So yeah, it's also never too late to become versatile. If you're not as a younger player, it might turn out that you hit the national team and then get moved, and just go with that. Cool.
That's great advice. Natalie wants to know, what are the photos that are behind you?
Good question. This is the den. So this
the den. What's going on in the den?
These two are from the Olympics. So this one we got, sorry, there's a glare on it.
All right, we got a good angle there.
That one's Rio. Canada Soccer very kindly had these team photos framed for us after each medal. And then that one is London.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Nice little keepsakes.
And then that's an opening ceremonies from an Olympics there.
Oh, amazing. Very cool.
I won't show you the rest of the den because it's not that clean.
That's okay. We only have to clean the parts that go on the camera. Sorry. Outside of, like typical sort of like injuries and things that are tough in that respect, what has been the hardest part about being a professional soccer player for you? We all know it's not probably super easy all the time, and it's not always all the glitz and glamour that we would assume it would be for those of us who haven't had the chance. So what are some of the challenges that have come up for you over the years?
Overwhelmingly positive experience, would recommend. I think just the fact that you have to travel a lot and you have to be away from home, wherever that is, a lot. One of the positives is you get to travel a lot and see the world, and especially when you're playing professionally somewhere, you have more time to explore and really get to know the place. And I've lived some pretty cool places. But then in season, like especially in Utah, there's a lot of travel, and the travel can be quite a grind. And then again, like my home is in Toronto now, but I live in Utah 8-9 months a year usually. So that's obviously tough being away from home, which is why we got to get a pro team here in Toronto. So
Exactly.
that all you guys can play in Toronto and be at home.
And not have to travel, just get to see your family a little bit more often. What's it like to have a street named after you?
Does that person live near Diana Matheson? Oh,
there happens to be a Diana Matheson.
My mom asking? That might be my mom.
It's not, that's not your mom's not crashed the party that I can see yet. So
yeah. it was very nice. It was a very nice honor. Yeah.
Yeah, you're very well known, obviously, in Oakville, especially at our club. We are all huge fans, and having that. Has it been weird being a little bit being a celebrity or being like a sports figure, being idolized by a lot of players? Is that like, what does that feel like? I certainly don't know. I've always wondered though.
It was after London that suddenly people knew who we were, and we were getting recognized kind of on the street, which was crazy. I mean, that definitely faded down after a bit. But most of us at that time had kind of already been on the national team for 10 years. So I think we recognized it as a privilege and an opportunity, and built more opportunities out of that. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's, again, important to have visibility out there of professional women's athletes and role models for anyone watching out there. So I try and be more visible than maybe my personality is. Is my face still on the side of the building in the Oakville Soccer Club, or has that been updated?
There's nothing on the side of the building currently, but there is a shrine.
Yeah, that's
I would call it a shrine.
Yeah.
Some clippings from your very early days, and then some jerseys and some photos from some other cool stuff. So we have the memorabilia running strong.
Okay.
So, and it's not going anywhere. So we're very proud of it. Great question from Steve Glean, one of our coaches. What is advice you would give to parents in regards to best supporting their children's development through their soccer journey?
Great question. I'm not a parent yet, so I can't give you the full parent perspective. I know most of the players I've played with on the national team, their parents have tended to be, it's anecdotal, it's a bit coincidence, but have tended to be quite standoffish. We don't kind of have any of those, okay, I'm going to throw hockey under the bus, kind of the stereotypical like hockey intense type parent. Sure. So I would say that maybe doesn't work as much. I think just be supportive. As long as your kid is always having fun and enjoying it, that's the most important thing. And they're, want to go out and work hard, that's fantastic. And then, all your kids are different and probably like different feedback and support. But I think for myself, it was more the laid back, supportive parent that was always willing to drive me places. That was very helpful for me in my career.
Key. You got to get there. Yeah, maybe that's a question. Maybe we'll have to rope Laurel Matheson into coming into an interview and telling us about that experience as a parent. That would be really cool to have that conversation.
I think she has free time right now. I think you
perfect. Well, tell her I'll call her. We'll set it up. That would be awesome. I think actually a lot of parents would really love to hear about that journey and that, watching your child grow and become this like professional player and accomplish all these things. I'm sure it's very prideful, but probably lots of bumps along the way too and challenges for them. So tell Laurel I'll give her a shout about that. Okay. Ella wants to know, why did you choose number 8 for your jersey?
Good question. It was never my favorite number. When I played for Oakville, I actually loved number 2. So I always wore number 2. And then when I made the national team, you kind of just have to take whatever number is available. Cause Christine Sinclair is number 12, like Charmaine Hooper is number 10. You don't get to pick any number because most of them are taken. So number 13 was available. So for my first year, I wore number 13. Mm-hmm. And then a player named Amy Walsh, who'd been away for the team, came back. And 13 was her number. So I had to give it back to her.
Give it back. Yeah.
And at that time, the number 8 was available, who had previously, it had been worn by Christina Kiss, who was a midfielder from Ottawa. And she was, I loved watching Christina Kiss play. So I took number 8 and then I held on to it. So that's how I got 8. And I love it. Like I love 8 now. Yeah.
Now it's your thing. That's awesome. Good question. Thanks, Ella. Lola wants to know, what's your favorite soccer move?
What's my favorite soccer move?
Do you have a go-to?
You know what I like? I don't have a lot of go-to moves. I'm not like really a like flair throw moves one. I like a good double back heel. And that one John Herdman brought into the mix, back heel left, and then kind of hit it behind that leg with your other foot. I like that one. And when you pull it off on the field, it looks good. And it works a surprisingly high amount of time too. It's not just like a showy one, like it works. Yeah.
Nice. Good to know. Well, everybody work on that one. Submit your videos, tag Diana, show her, and she will critique them for you. Good question from a couple of different players that have been asking sort of on the same theme. What can they do now? Like, what are you doing now to sort of continue to train? And what advice do you have for training when, it's off season, or when training's on a break, or staying in shape, or a good example of, sort of things that are going on right now? What kind of stuff do you do to keep in good shape? And what kind of advice can you give for staying motivated when it's probably a little hard? We know where right now, some of us are having a hard time getting motivated to do things. Yeah,
that's a great question. And it's, it's a tricky question for sure. I mean, even with me, our professional season was delayed kind of, we don't know how long. So it is, it's tougher for me to get motivated and do the workout, especially when you can't go to the field and really play soccer, or even go by myself to a field to like touch a ball on a bigger space because all the fields are closed. So
exactly, yeah.
What am I doing right now? I have this den. So I do strength workouts in the den, kind of some lifts. I have a few weights here, lifts and power, body weight stuff. Our national team strength and conditioning coach is fantastic. And he gives us a program that we do. And we have some Zoom calls 3 times a week where we can do it as a group if we want. So that's been great. And then I can still go for runs, kind of for the fitness part of it. As I said, dodging people. I've tried to find routes where there are typically fewer people so that I don't have to dodge people as much too, but also I don't stress people out as I'm running by them, because I know people are concerned with joggers these days too. And I have my little scarf I can pull up if I need. So strength I can do, fitness I can do, and I'll do different types of runs. Like I'll go on longer, slower ones, or I'll do some like 4-minute intervals where I'll go harder for 4 minutes, off for 3. Or you can do shorter intervals than that too. Just try and mix it up. And then, ball stuff, not a ton, unfortunately, because again, there's not a lot of space, but I have, I just kick against a wall, I basically grew up kicking against a wall. And when I still lived in Oakville with my parents in between seasons, I would often be seen at Oakville Soccer Center by myself with a ball or a bag of balls, just kicking the ball against the wall. Because you can do different touches. You're working on inside of your foot, outside of your foot. You can work on different turns, pass, turn, dribble out, do a move, turn back. Like you can almost do anything, infinity amount of combinations on that. So it's not a big space I'm doing, but I can still work on little touches and
still get the touches on and shake it up, trying different things. It sounds like you've got a variety of sort of things you're choosing from. So it's not the same all the time. So probably shaking it up a little bit and changing up what's going on. And also for those watching, we have some OSC live sessions. We have ball mastery sessions. We have fitness sessions. So you can tune into those, and you can check out our videos page on our OSC's Facebook page, and all the videos are saved down to there too. So if you have a spare half an hour and you want to get a workout in, grab one of those videos and work on that, and just keep yourself motivated and active. That'll help pass the time.
Variation is definitely important, and finding that stuff where you can do it in a group. And if you enjoy doing that, that always helps. It helps if you can find maybe a class or another person. You kind of have a time during the day, and then you have that at that time during the day. I found helps.
Setting a goal.
And two, if there's one workout that you're having to do or that you've done once, and and you're hating it, and you find that you're just so unmotivated to do that one, then maybe that's not the time to do that one right now. We're not in season. Find the things that you actually want to do, that you enjoy doing, that you feel better after you've done them, and lean more into those things, because we don't have a game this weekend. We don't need to be soccer ready. It's just important you stay happy and healthy.
Exactly. It's a tough time. I know we're all going through really strange adjustment to this sort of new normal, and it's easy to get down and to be sad about the things that we miss. So staying active and, like Diana said, do the things you like to do, and that makes a big difference than pushing yourself really hard for something that's not imminent. So that's really great advice. Thanks, Diana. We're getting close to the end of our time, so we'll take a few more questions here. What's your favorite pre or post game meal?
I don't think I have a go-to. Well, when we're with the national team, we have a team buffet, so it's kind of set. But on game day with the national team, we always get pancakes. So I do like to have a good pancake kind of pre-meal, because game days, especially if it's an evening game, can be quite a lot of eating, because you need to get enough energy for the game. So we'll have like breakfast, lunch, pre-game meal all before 4 o'clock.
Right.
And so for the third meal, it's nice to have a little change up and get some pancakes, maybe some fruit.
Delicious. What's your favorite like splurge meal, if you're just going to eat like what you love so much, or what do you look forward to snacking on, or a favorite cheat meal?
That's a good question. There's that's a hard one. I feel like I don't really have a go-to. I don't think. I do have a sweet tooth. Okay. Mom makes some pretty good brownies, so delicious. I'll go with that. That wasn't a meal. That was just a treat at the end.
That was just something I like to eat. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Brownies are delicious. What else do we have here? A lot of people are asking, they want you to call out some people. So what are some players you've just loved playing with or playing against?
Oh, I mean, Sinky's not bad to play with.
Not bad.
I mean, repeats here. I mean, Rian Wilkinson was usually like we'd be on the same side of the field, and she was one of my best friends. So it was always fun to play with her. She was a right fullback. I was out usually right midfield, so we always had a good combo going. I loved playing with Melissa Tancredi. I feel like we were on the same, vibes all the time. I'm this too old for the kids again, but Charmaine Hooper was an unbelievable player. She was kind of before her time. She, and just how hard she worked was incredible, and she was hard as nails, man. She'd go into every tackle just so hard, which kind of set the tone for everything. Who else? I'll throw out an American one. I played with Crystal Dunn in DC, and she's just a ball of energy, and she's fun to play with, and like when she'd go on a dribble, it was always fun to watch. That's good. Is that good?
That's good. That's lots. Yeah, that's great. Have you found that some of you, like you mentioned, being very close with Rian, and like, have you found some of your closest friendships have come out of your soccer career?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's kind of that whole group of generation of players. We played together 10, 12, 15 years on the team, and we very much grew up playing together. So it's been
coming up and sharing that experience probably creates a bond in a lot of ways. So
absolutely. Like Robin Gale, another defender, played for Canada for years. She works on the staff now for Canada.
Yep.
She grew up she moved a bit when she was younger, but she played for Mississauga a bit. She played for Oakville one year. We played together. Carmelina Moscato grew up playing for Dixie Mississauga. So like we were playing against each other when we were like 11 years old, and then you kind of like grow up together. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Neat to have those relationships and see sort of these really cool careers evolve with your teammates and your opponents and stuff as you're growing up. Really cool. We're getting towards the end of our time here. So I do have to ask, and it's come up a few questions, and I'm sure you've answered it a lot of times in your career, but what do you love about soccer?
We've probably already said it. I love that it's a team sport, and definitely my best friends I met through soccer, kind of my biggest mentors I've met through soccer. There's just so many opportunities there. And also the fact that you get to travel, and I've had the opportunity to see the world through soccer, which has been unbelievable.
Doesn't hurt, right? That's awesome. Robert wants to know what's your record for keep ups? How many keep ups can you do?
I have never counted it high enough to know what my record is. I'm sorry. I was when I was a kid, I would just juggle, but I was never one to like count them. So I'm not sure. Too high to count.
We'll say a lot. We'll just call it a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's most. I think we've covered a lot. There are still a lot of other questions, and hopefully we'll chat with Diana another time in the future and get to answer a bunch of those questions. I'd like to round it out just asking sort of if you have a few words of advice for the young soccer players who are playing everywhere right now in Canada at OSC, all of the clubs that tuned in today, and thanks to everybody from other clubs who hopped on today too. We're really excited to see the interaction and be able to share these cool experiences with each other during this time. So what advice can you give to these young players, both male and female, who are, you know, coming up right now and ready to take on the game as they get a little bit older?
I think we'll take it past this pandemic.
Yes, because it will pass.
Yeah. I think I know my kind of generation of national team players, they all kind of have similar stories in that they were all cut from a team at some point in time, except perhaps Christine Sinclair. I don't think she was cut ever, but everyone else has not made a team or had a setback at some point in their career, but they were all just willing to put in the work and put in more work than the person beside them. And that's honestly, that's the secret. Always be willing to put in the work, always have a beginner's learner's mindset where you want to get better, you want to learn new things, and just always keep working on those things you want to get better at. And watch soccer, learn from the players on TV, try and do the things they're doing on TV. Don't be scared to try it in games. And that's it. The world is your oyster. There'll be pro soccer in Toronto when you're older. You can play for that team, and then I can watch you and be inspired by you.
That's awesome. Really appreciate that. Thanks so much, Diana, for taking the time. I'm a big fan, so this was a very cool experience for me to be able to share this conversation with you. Very cool experience for our players to get to interact with you a little bit on our Facebook page and be able to have something to occupy their time a little bit during this really strange time. Phil Laurel will definitely be hitting her up for a chat soon. Mm-hmm. Everybody be sure to tune into our live sessions that we continue to have throughout the week. Also, Diana mentioned the name Carmelina Moscato, and we are lucky enough to be having a chat with her next week. So we're just moving through the roster here of players that have been involved with soccer for a long time and a teammate of Diana's. So Carmelina Moscato next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Will take some time to chat with us too. So that'll be really great. Keep tuning in, keep your questions coming. Drop a like on the video, and thanks for interacting with us. And Diana, all the best to you and your training at home. And we look forward to seeing you on the field again as soon as possible. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'll have to tune in and ask Carm some questions myself.
Yes, definitely get into the questions there. We'll be sure to shout out to you as well. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Again, I'm Katrina for the Oakville Soccer Club. Stay well and stay safe, and we'll see you all soon. Good night, everyone.